Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with Friday Ramblings, and it's still Halloween time, so it's still spooktacular. That's right, we got the spooktacular shirt, and we got the spooktacular content, because we are delving into some, by and large, forgotten TV lore. Yep. If you do like your horror to be of a episodic format, we've got a little bit of a treat for you because this is a gem that has been buried in a bit of dust over the years. We're talking about Friday the 13th, the series. Now, first things first, we're going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Full stop, full disclosure. Friday the 13th series has no direct connections to the movie franchise as far as storylines go. There is no connection to the Voorhees family, whether Mama Pam or son Jason, or the location of Camp Crystal Lake. We'll discuss why they titled the series that in just a second, but we did want to get that disclosure out the way, as well as some of the technicalities. So Friday the 13th series was an American-Canadian horror television series produced by Paramount Domestic Television and distributed by the CBS Paramount Television Group. Ran for 3 seasons, covering 72 episodes, first airing on October 3rd, 1987, and the last new episode airing being on May 26, 1990. So, pretty respectable run for a series that did not air with a lot of major Big 3 network hype. Still, the show was successful in its initial first season. For the record, get my notes here on how good it did. And that. Let's see, as we said, filming did take place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, as many series in the 80s and 90s did, due to it being very budget-friendly for television to film in Canada. Friday the 13th series aired in first-run syndication, initially in a late-night spot. However, the success of the series as a late-night show prompted some broadcasting stations to move it up to prime time. Produced on a budget estimated below $500,000 per episode, the first season placed second in the male 18 to 49-year-old demographic, just behind Paramount's other hit new show, Star Trek The Next Generation. And in addition, the first season also placed fifth in the female 18 to 49-year-old demographic. The third season would be cut short due to the abrupt decision to cancel the show. Thus, the third season only has 20 episodes, whereas the first 2 had 26. Cancellation was so sudden that the crew were unable to film more episodes or more scenes to add to that 20th episode to provide some kind of closure. So, sad times for that particular show, but let's get into the good times. First of all, why did they call it Friday the 13th? My tongue is possessed. Why did they call it Friday the 13th series if it did not in fact have a connection to the Friday the 13th movie franchise that was up and going at the time? Well, originally the series was to be called The 13th Hour. However, the show was produced by Frank Mancuso Jr., who thought that the name would turn away viewers and instead took the name Friday the 13th to deliberately draw in audiences, feeling that he had some rights to play with the name and create implications due to the fact that Frank Mancuso Jr. was producer of the Friday the 13th movies, starting with Part 2 and concluding with Part 8. So he was deeply involved with the legacy of Jason Voorhees at the time. It is rumored that in the UK, the series was occasionally marketed as Friday's Curse. However, the advertisement breaks still use the Friday the 13th series title cards. So what breaks down the series, and what is it actually about if it's not about Camp Crystal Lake or the Voorhees? Well, it's very simple. And this plot may sound a little familiar, and we're definitely going to touch on that at the end. The series starts with an antiques dealer who makes a deal with the devil that in exchange for great power, he would sell cursed antiques so they can spread chaos around the world and mess with other humans because the devil is a bad person. Now, this antique dealer's name is Louis Vendredi. Vendredi meaning Friday in French, thus the last name is a bit of an in-joke. And eventually he decides, though, that his wealth, magic powers, and immortality were not worth the price of continuing to sow chaos around the world through these cursed antiques, and he rebels against the devil. The devil promptly cancels the deal and claims Louis's soul, leading to Louis being dead. Well, with his death and lack of children of his own, his antique store and the cursed antiques that were still residing in it was inherited by his niece, Mickey Foster, played by Louis Roby, and her cousin by marriage, Ryan Dallion, played by John D. LeMay. They decide not to keep the store in the long term and go on a very quick, rapid selling spree to get rid of the inventory. Unfortunately, they did not know these antiques were cursed, so they were, in a sense, doing the job of the devil, unbeknown to them. Eventually, Jack Marshak, a world traveler and occultist who helped Vendredi collect many of the antiques to start with before they became cursed by the devil, shows up, informs them of the nature of the curse, and the three of them decide to try to recover the antiques sold not just by Ryan and Mickey, but by Louis himself beforehand, bringing true closure to this particular devil's deal. Thus, you have the plot of the show where Mickey and Ryan primarily do the running around as they track down the antiques and get them out of the hands of those who do not fully understand their power or are wicked people and willing to use them to happily cause chaos, hoping to bring a good end to the situation they found themselves stumbling into. However, they were not alone as far as the main cast goes. We also have Rashid, who is an Egyptian mystic, who helps the trio out on a couple of occasions and is referenced in many other episodes, helping supplement Jack's knowledge of the occult so they can deal with the cursed antiques in a proper nature. Rashid ultimately, as I said, only appeared in 2 episodes in person. However, he is name dropped in several others. After season 2, actually in the last couple episodes of season 2, we are introduced to Johnny Ventura. Originally a arrogant, perverted skirt chaser who certainly was very interested in Mickey. He becomes the full replacement for Ryan in season 3, at which he starts rehabilitating and redeeming himself as a person. And over the course of the season, there's hints that him and Mickey start genuinely falling in love with each other, though no full relationship is truly kindled. Besides being a bit of a pervert, Johnny has a past having served time in prison, which serves as a plot point in a few episodes. We also have in a recurring role the ghost of Uncle Louis, who despite having been dragged to hell by the devil, is still wandering around using what's left of his occult knowledge and power to try to return to Earth and mortality, even if it means victimizing his own family to do so. This makes Uncle Lewis the only real recurring villain in the series, even though the whole series was kind of launched by Lewis doing what was right and refusing to play along with the devil's scheme any longer. The fact that he did the deal to begin with does show he was always a bit wicked in the heart. Now, because many people did find that the magic power of the antiques before the Mickey and Ryan, or Mickey and Johnny in later seasons, tracked them down, they do have to go through various shenanigans and occasionally a bit of action to get the items, because that's what all good shows need. Ultimately, however, when an antique is retrieved, it is locked away in a vault beneath the antique store, which, after the death of Lewis, was renamed from Vendretti's Antiques to Curious Goods. The vault being mystically enchanted so that it would render the object's curses inert. This is due to the fact that the curses also make the antiques indestructible. They use a manifest written by Lewis to keep track of how many cursed objects are out in the world and who had initially bought them from Lewis, though occasionally other people have picked it up since the sale. They never specifically reference the city the antique shop is in. However, there are props used to hint that the town is supposed to take place in America, such as occasional appearances of U.S. currency and United States flags used as decor in the background. Ryan himself states he is from Chicago. So, what makes this show so special? If it's not technically part of the greater Crystal Lake lore, well, besides the fact that it is a fun little sci-fi romp, especially for people who do enjoy their late 80s, early 90s television, having a lot of good, fun, creative writing due to the varied kinds of antiques and the cast changes. We do have episodes that also develop the characters, referencing Mickey's engagement to another gentleman that she has to keep putting aside due to wanting to deal with this cursed antiques capers before settling down with anybody, as well as the aforementioned Johnny's background as somebody that has served time in prison. You get a lot of good fun. Also, the series, being something of a horror stint to start with, did, for the 80s and 90s, push the boundaries of what was considered acceptable content on television. This is part of why it was initially aired in late-night time slots. The violence would be shown to be on par with that of many R-rated horror movies at the time, and occasionally depicting a level of sexuality that was still considered taboo for major network television. Of course, old folks like me remember that was, in many ways, one of the big appeals of cable television, is that a lot of these lesser channels, especially ones that had late night content, would be allowed to push the boundaries a little farther than those practiced by the big three. Eventually four, once Fox got up and going. But still, that was how a lot of these shows got attention, and how a lot of these cable channels got attention. so they could afford to put on these shows, was pushing the boundaries of violence and sexual content. Still, it was nothing truly deemed pornographic. Again, let's be fair here. It was not that kind of show, which is probably a good thing. Also, not every episode ended with complete victory for the heroes. Sometimes the victims of the curse would not be able to be saved, or sometimes they would not be able to get back the antique at all, because it is still steeped in the horror genre, and like any good horror fan will tell you, you don't want a mega happy ending. A lot of the fun is the suspense of the occasional open-ended short-term defeat. I mean, how scary can stuff be if it doesn't occasionally beat back the heroes? Here's the real fun, though. Let's go ahead and get to it. Break it down. What makes this thing so interesting in the modern times? Well, that is that the basic formula, which at this time was not utilized as part of an ongoing episodic series, specifically that of a small group of individuals rooting out evil supernatural occurrences, set a standard that other shows would copy throughout the 90s and 2000s. For instance, shows like Buffy, Angel, The X-Files, all had episodes revolving around the team recovering cursed artifacts, as well as dealing with general supernatural threats. Also, the similar took the name from a movie series, but not directly related to it, Poltergeist: The Legacy, which is good times. But most importantly is that in 2009, the Sci-Fi Channel created an original series called Warehouse 13 that seemed to borrow a lot more than the basic plot element of, hey, a group of people dealing with the supernatural, because of personal connections to it. Warehouse 13 starred two agents, Micah and Peter, led by an older, wiser Artie Nielsen. So, a male and a female, led by an older mentor figure, who go around collecting artifacts and powerful items that are, quote, imbued with human energy, giving them supernatural powers. Okay. Artifacts that were subsequently stored in the titular Warehouse 13, allowing them to be safely hidden from the public and those who would willingly use them for evil or selfish purposes. A warehouse, like a vault. Ooh. However, should we say that the artifacts featured in Warehouse 13 are not evil by nature nor necessarily cursed, and due to that, unlike the vast majority of the artifacts seen in the Friday the 13th series, do not require a human sacrifice in order for them to function and are capable of being destroyed. So in all fairness to the Warehouse 13 people, it's not like they did a remake and just pretended they didn't by not reusing the name or anything crazy like that. There are some important differences, but you really can't look at a show like Warehouse 13, look at a show like Friday the 13th series, and not say somebody somewhere on the writing crew was aware of that earlier series and thought the premise had a lot more potential untapped in it, giving it their own modernized, updated twist. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it is why Friday the 13th, the series, is historically important. Because Warehouse 13 has a lot of great fans. If you're a fan of Warehouse 13, you should check out Friday the 13th, the series, to see what is essentially a prototype of Warehouse 13, which I think is the most fair way to discuss everything. Warehouse 13 seems to have taken some influences from Friday the 13th, and that's fair. We all do it as writers. Still, it makes it highly recommended, not to mention the aforementioned other 90s series, which tended to be influenced more by just the most basic framework of our beloved series. The series, Friday the 13th, does maintain a strong fan base to this day. However, the complete series has been released on DVD, as well as the first season having seen home release. I think the second season as well. But these days, most likely, if you find a copy of it, it is going to be the complete series, which is good because, as I said, it's less than 100 episodes. It's not like it would take you a huge amount of time investment to binge. One could cover it over the course of the month of October. Or at least give it a hefty start, depending on how many episodes a night you want to cram. But more importantly is that the fan community continues to maintain an internet presence. There is in fact a nice website featuring various articles and information on the show that I encourage everybody to check out. It is vendrettiantiques.com, where you can look up various show information, take quizzes, read trivia, and really dive deep into the show before you give it a look-see. So please check out vendrettiantiques.com. For now, though, I'm going to sign off. We have one more episode of October spooky Halloween ramblings to discuss. It is our just before Halloween big finale, and I got a good one for you, because we are deep diving into the holiday itself, or at least a major aspect of it. Also, please remember that if you do link or subscribe, comment, click the notification bell to the site, we'll link it to your friends so they can keep track too. This lovely channel also will bring you, and has been bringing you over the past few weeks, some wonderful spooky video game streams as well. Gotta love those spooky game streams, so you can get as much Halloween in your life as you can take. Let it seep into your soul. For now, though, I am going to leave you. Go forth, enjoy the creepiness, and remember, it's always Halloween if you keep it in your heart. Bye-bye, folks.